So, hi everyone. We're officially live with our NFTs and the creative economy of Web3 panel. I have the pleasure of being joined by three amazing panelists today, all pioneers in their own respect, working in the NFT space, in the Metaverse space. And I guess I'll start it off by leaving it up to the three of you guys to give your own introductions, tell us what you're working on currently and what you're excited to build out in the next couple of months. So starting with Oscar, if you wanted to kick things off.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to have an audience that is willing to listen to me. So always very fun to be a part of these talks. My name is Oscar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Agoraverse. We are a e-commerce centric metaverse that has started earlier this year, with an NFT collection actually called the Lofts Business Club. So we created this NFT collection at the beginning of the year. And the whole idea behind the NFTs that we sold was that every holder of the NFT would get access to their virtual apartment. And from this idea, we came up to the point where now we are building e-commerce and shopping-centric experiences for the Metaverse. I have been able to kind of scope the NFT landscape for a while now, and I'm absolutely in love with everything Web3 related. And I'm happy to be having this talk.
Amazing. Well, thanks for joining us today. Me and Oscar had the pleasure of meeting in Monaco a couple of days ago for a crypto summit that was held out there. And he gave an amazing presentation about his metaverse that he's building out. So really looking forward to dive into that a little bit more today. And Adonis, how about you? If you wanted to give us a little intro about yourself and Renovi.
Sure. By now, I'm a bit of an OG into these kind of meetings as well. I think it's the third one that we had together. So I'm really happy to be back. Right. So obviously I'm Adonis. I'm the co-founder of Renovi and Renovi Studios. What we're building is a niche NFT marketplace for architects and 3D designers that want to enter the space and want to monetize their designs, but also for landowners that want to populate their lands within the metaverse with some amazing designs. And at the same time, we run our own studio that is working on 3D creations, and not only that, on NFTs and so on, with various brands within the Web2 space that want to enter the Web3 space. So we're just doing everything in our power to empower architects or brands that are outside of the metaverse to embrace it and come in. And that's me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Matt, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Cool. Thanks, Tali. Hey, everybody, I'm Matt. I head all the business development and sort of strategy for Metaverse Group. Metaverse Group is a really interesting company. We sort of on-ramp brands into the Metaverse. And one of the ways we do that is we hold a lot of NFT land across multiple Metaverse platforms. And the whole goal for us is really to help brands sort of get into the Web3 space and entertain different ideas such as virtual stores or virtual activations. A lot of what we do is sort of similar to like experiential marketing, if you're familiar with that. So when you see pop-up shops at music concerts and stuff like that, we sort of follow a similar formula and strategy. And earlier this year, one of our biggest clients is Forever 21, where we built out a virtual store in Decentraland. And we also hosted an event called the Decentraland Metaverse Fashion Week. So it's been really interesting. We got a lot of really cool opportunities in the pipeline, and NFTs and sort of creatives, I really see them getting more involved in the metaverse, more creatives getting involved in the metaverse, sort of building out their own activations, their own sort of storytelling and mini games across these metaverse platforms, as I kind of foresee this going into like customizable video games in a way. So it's a really interesting space, really excited for this conversation. And feel free to ask us any questions in the chat there on the right.
So thanks so much, guys. You guys are all each respectively working on such incredible projects. Can't wait to dive a little bit more into each and every one of those and pick your brains on such a fascinating topic. Before getting into things, I'll just briefly introduce myself. My name is Tali Friedman. You might have recognized me as the host of today's event. I work with GDA Capital, Secure Digital Markets, and I'm also the head of marketing over at NFT BAZL, which is a boutique NFT marketplace. We offer NFT consulting, similar to what Matt's doing in the metaverse, but specific to the NFT space, helping to onboard creators and businesses into the NFT and Web3 world. So much to talk about here. I wanted to start off by maybe highlighting the creative economy of Web3, because the creative economy really came about with the development of Web2. It invented an entire industry of jobs that didn't exist prior to the creation of the internet. So with that being said, I think it's safe to say that each and every one of us here on this panel today are working in jobs that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. And I guess that would be a really interesting place to start off with. I'll leave the floor open to anyone who wants to just jump in and talk about more broadly, what does the creative economy of Web3 look like? What new jobs are we seeing emerge into the market that are only possible because of blockchain technology and the new innovations that we're seeing today?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off because I have a couple of ideas around the topic. I still don't know exactly what my job is, right? This is Web3. It is still a very new experience. It's kind of like the Wild West. Everything is to be built. We're still early is the famous catchphrase, but it is true in a lot of ways. What we are seeing as are individuals with new skill sets that they have developed in their own kind of bubbles. So you have experts on Discord, for example. Discord is such an integral part of Web3. Some say to a fault, but it is what we have at the moment. And you have actual Discord geniuses that power these kind of ventures, and that is something obviously that did not exist even when Discord started. So we are seeing all those creative ways where people with their own skills kind of contribute to Web3 and try to build out their own path. And again, everything is to invent, and we have those amazing tools, that the blockchain allow to really be creative with it. And I have the title CEO, but I think it's still very different from what a traditional Web2 CEO would look like. We are way more working in collaboration with people. We are using, skills from developers jointly with community managers and building this thing together. It's really a team game, in anything, but especially in Web3, I feel like.
Definitely. And I know with Agoraverse, you guys are building out an e-commerce experience on Web3, which is something entirely different from what we've seen in Web2. I'd love it if you could maybe dive a little deeper into that and tell us how that experience is changing with the creation of the Metaverse.
Right. I mean, the Metaverse is a concept that has been around for a while now for people that are gamers like me. We know World of Warcraft for over 20 years, the ideas of virtual worlds where people have their virtual identity and are very, very close to it. And the Metaverse is just kind of making this experience open to everyone, and not only gamers, but more to the broader public. With Agoraverse, we really kind of, thought about what the Metaverse would actually be used for, and not simply be a buzzword or a trend like it has been for a little while now, and actually give concrete use cases for that. And we find that by creating e-commerce centric experiences, shopping experiences inside of the Metaverse, we can use concepts from video games that are that have been quite addictive for a lot of people, but we can apply them to new genres through the Metaverse. And we also, with the Metaverse, can act as the bridge between Web2 companies and Web3, because we work with both. We are creating storefronts and those experiences for the real world, for the traditional business side of things, but also for NFT projects, and actually for a lot of NFT projects, because we are one. We are still an NFT project ourselves, and we have been able to make those amazing connections in the space, and to flesh out, an NFT project store the same as like a traditional clothing store, and put them both together. And so kind of acting like this first step for a lot of traditional businesses into the Web3 idea, but also kind of hopefully legitimizing, Web3 initiatives like NFT projects that have something to say for themselves by giving them this platform.
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, but what a great name as well, because at the same time, Agora means a place where people can gather together and actually exchange ideas, but also exchange goods and services. We take it back from Greek as well, right? So it's really spot on coming into the Web3 space. This is exactly what you want to do with your marketplace, right? You want to create a new version of Agora. So it used to be back, I don't know, in ancient Greece, that people will gather in a space. Now are moving along, maybe that space is going to be virtual, and it's going to be a space where you can exchange ideas, which is part of it, but also exchange goods and services, which is another part of what you're creating, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole idea behind Agora, as you said, was this place, this virtual place where people meet and exchange ideas and exchange products, services, whatever. So that's obviously Agora is not like the most original names of all time. So we kind of stuck verse at the end there, Agoraverse. That's the whole idea behind creating the spaces. At the end of the day, is bringing communities together in a place where they can see each other, talk to each other. Something again that is very common on the video game. In the video game universe, but not really in the traditional side of internet yet.
Yeah. And by the way, because of that reason, in bringing communities together, sorry, I'm just overtaking the whole thing, but
Go for it.
it had some
Please.
really interesting points that I think we can dive into and go on tangents from here onwards. Is these communities and actually finding these new communities from this space and creating new topics and new markets for them. For example, if we take it back to what we're building, and I apologize for taking it back to what I'm building, but this is what I know inside out, right? We're creating a new market for architects, and we're just trying to leverage what the architects are already creating and what they have done for so many years in the real life. And we say that there could be a new market for them in this 3D space, right? So, for example, you can have Agora, and part of Agora is this amazing building that you immerse yourself in, and then you can do your 3D purchases. That's great, but part of the whole magic of the metaverse is having that space that can actually give you emotions and how you feel while you're walking around, to make you feel like, oh, I want to purchase this, or I don't want to purchase this because it doesn't agree with me, and so on. And it's tapping into these new communities. So our new initiative here at Renovi as well is trying to educate as much as we can people that could find new jobs within the metaverse on how to monetize their creations, but also for other people as well, how to get these creations and make a revenue for themselves as well. Because everybody needs to, you need to think of the whole supply and demand chain, everybody buy and sell side when you're thinking of this. You cannot be selling stuff, but nobody's buying them. So we holistically try to educate everyone, and we just started that initiative now in order to find these new markets, and I think we found one, and make it work.
Yeah, and you know what? It kind of, you played back to the original question that I was waiting to answer a bit around the creative economy and how, like, this NFT technology, this is probably the thing that has excited me the most about getting involved in the space, which is, I think artists, whether you're a musician, whether you're a graphic artist, a movie maker, like, the NFT technology is just the instrument to be able to share some of that work, but also be able to allow you to own it. Where we know traditionally, like, a music artist signs away X amount of % of anything they make to a record label because they need that label to sort of help market and distribute the music to the right places. And now with blockchain, like, now there's going to be this huge creative economy where you're going to have all of these talented artists all over the world that have all of the tools at their fingertips, where they can make music on their laptop, graphic work on their laptop, movies on their iPhone, and they can put it on an NFT and sell that piece of work. And I see, like, there's going to be all sorts of cool roles that can help artists basically do this. So maybe there's Web3 strategists that help artists who are not familiar with the space say, hey, you have all of this amazing art. Why don't we create an NFT collection and market it in this way and get it to your audience? And, I see a lot of, like, musicians notably that, are amazingly talented and, struggle to maybe get a really widespread audience. But even with, a great audience of 3, 4, 5,000 people, if you create a collection, you don't need the biggest reach to be able to still make a career out of your art because of blockchain, where you can release a collection and have 1,000 diehard fans that help fund your next record or your next movie because you're selling out certain aspects of that, of that piece of work to, anyone on an NFT collection. And I think that the metaverse is going to be like a way for these audiences to connect with their artists or, like, with their creators. And there's going to be community spaces where, maybe anyone who buys into this project can share this space and sort of hang out all together. And this is all because of, like, blockchain or NFT technology. It doesn't really matter what the what the medium is on top of it.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it's a more direct way to monetize your creation, because up to now, the way these creators were monetizing their work was through social media like Instagram or TikTok and so on. And don't forget that they take a really big percentage of what they are creating. And then the actual creator is left with a really small percentage of what the revenue to a bigger organization was, right? So now I'm not saying you're not going to use social media. Of course, you're going to use it, but that's not going to be your primary source of income. But through NFTs, then you can have a different, more direct source of income to you, and then even more indirect sources of income from secondary sales and so on. At the same time, if you even look at the uh, social media statistics and how these platforms are doing right now, and probably I'm a bit deviating, I think people or individuals up to now, there was a reversal in the trends. They were, in a way, they were fed up with Facebook, and they were fed up with Instagram at some point. And then I'm not saying TikTok is declining, but YouTube was declining to a certain extent, right? And people were trying to search for more immersive experiences. And then at the same time, here you go, Metaverse comes into play, and then you can have some more immersive experiences while at the same time you can be from the comfort of your own home. And then match that together with the ability to have a more direct route to your audience and be able to sell your music, your creations, whatever it is, 3D assets and so on. I'm optimistic that the old models that we have up to now, which probably weren't perfect, we might be breaking them, and we might be forming something better. I hope, at least.
Totally.
I think you guys, I can say this for all of you, or you guys are helping to build that something that's better. And I mean, Adonis, your platform, as you said, is monetizing creation. I believe those are the words that you used, but I think that's exactly right, because when you look at the creative economy that was birthed out of Web 2, and that gave rise to jobs like content creators. Content creation wasn't, something that existed in the generation before us. But the issue with that model was that it was really based on the economy of attention, because it wasn't the creations that were generating revenue, but the attentions that they were brought. And then advertisers would come in and you would sell that space of attention. But by building out platforms like the one that you're working on, Renovi, with supporting different architects, and Oscar, having that immersive experience in the metaverse to allow people to really shop and browse, you're turning that economy of attention into an economy of creativity. You're attaching, through NFT technology, the ability to see value in the creations themselves, as opposed to just the attention that you're giving them. And I think that shift is a really fundamental one. Matt, I would love to hear your opinions as well, because I know you're working similar to Oscar in onboarding Web 2 companies into the Web 3 space. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on maybe the shifts that are taking place and how these traditional industries are adapting to this new model and trying to catch up with all of these innovations that are taking place.
Yeah, it's a great question and point, because what we've learned in the past few months is we've been working with some very large Fortune 500 companies, trying to figure out ways for them to get involved into Web3 and the metaverse. And it's showing how difficult it could be for these traditional institutions or companies to really figure out, how do we integrate this technology? How do we hold these assets on a balance sheet? Like, what is required? We have legal counsel reviewing all the paperwork, and it goes around in circles. And it's just showing that it's going to take a while for sort of these traditional systems to sort of figure out the technology. But what is really interesting is everyone is very, very interested. There's no doubt about that every single major company, every executive is thinking about this now, and they're trying to figure out, how do we integrate it? I think the metaverse is like a really interesting way to kick off getting involved in Web3, of starting to think like, okay, how do we use this to connect with customers? How do we use this to sort of sell more product or market more product? And I think once we get through some of these major projects, like once we start with building out a virtual store or a virtual experience that's sort of like a showroom at the base level, we're going to start seeing, like, I think ecosystems start to rise, where companies are going to start launching like NFT collections that are maybe like rewards passes or ways to customers to get discounts. Maybe there's reward tokens where there's a metaverse store and then there's a crypto token involved where if you use that token to buy their goods, you get a discount. Or if you buy X amount of goods, you get rewarded in an airdrop amount of that token. And these economies, these systems, these ecosystems, whatever word you want to use, like this is going to definitely take off. And I think that there is a need for sort of, we see a surplus of consultants in the space, but people who are really committed to trying to figure out, like, how do we integrate this technology? How do we go from not just an idea, but actually put something into place, because it is quite complicated. But I think, all that said, it's a really interesting position because I'm having so many cool conversations with such big thought leaders and executives that are looking at this and going like, okay, we don't know where to start, but like we have to start somewhere. Like, how do we do this, right? So very exciting time for sure.
I mean, we have the same experience there, where I've had the opportunity to talk to different kind of brand representatives and or smaller sized businesses as well that were like very interested in this metaverse stuff because they see it floating around and they want to attach their name to the hype, obviously.
Yeah.
And then they have no clue how to do this, and that is also part of our job, is to kind of educate them on, listen, the metaverse is valuable because of this. It offers more immersive, unique experiences than a traditional web page. It even goes a bit more crazy than a real life store. It's an education process that you have to do with those companies, as you said. And we have this Web3 component. You mentioned tokens being used, for example, in these virtual store economies. That is actually one of the things that we want to integrate as well, to offer our own token as a payment method to partner businesses that would like to, get their foot into Web3, and to kind of convince them. We give cash back on the transactions that are being made. There are tons of ideas that we can have using tokens, and in the creative aspect as well. I think creators economy has become such a commonplace now, and something that you have to look at some point. And it is also something that we want to try to incentivize with our token, where we want 3D artists, we want Web3 developers to contribute to our platform, and we want to reward them using those tokens and create this economy of, well, you bring something valuable to us, we give back something that's valuable, hopefully. And it's all those different cool topics that are just so interesting to work on.
Yeah. And, and even for me, like, I have sort of a business development role, and it can be sort of seen as a bit of a sales role. But the reality is it's actually more of an educational role, like you said, where I don't really sell the brand on anything. They're already convinced. It's more so, how do we actually get started? Like, how does this actually work? I don't really have to sit there to convince them to integrate this technology. They're coming to us saying, like, we're interested, like, how do we do it? So it's a really interesting role. And I think that has taught me a lot as well, where, you don't have to sell people on this idea. They want to get in. It's just they don't know where to start. So I think that there is a need for education and removing the friction on the compliance level as well, where legal counsels are looking at these assets and going like, how do we put this on a balance sheet? Like, what is this really considered? Like, what are the liabilities around this? And it's a very, very complicated, long process, but it's definitely up and running, and it'll get easier as time goes on, for sure.
Absolutely. And for us, for example, our Renovi studios, look, we have a lot of brands coming to us, and I think we figure out a way to move them along the Web3 space, if I may say so. So it always starts somehow with NFTs. They're interested into NFTs, and then they're like, can you have NFTs? Can you have them on our website? Who stores them? Who has them? So you start answering all these kind of questions, and you're so eager to answer them, and then they get into the group of things and they create NFTs, and we create NFTs for them, and it's amazing. And then they start asking more, and they continue their questions like, so what's actually the metaverse? Come and talk to me about the metaverse. And then they're interested. They're like, so can we recreate this for the metaverse? And you're like, yes, let's sit down and discuss it. So I think it's, for lack of a better phrase, NFTs were the gateway drug, right? Apologies for using this kind of phrase, but I think that's what it is. And then they're moving along, and now they're interested. Okay, what can I do with NFTs in the metaverse? Or what can I do with NFTs in real life, right? Can we offer them NFTs that have utility in real life? So somebody can come with their MetaMask wallet, they show the NFT, and then they get a free drink at a bar, or they get access to a certain VIP event and so on. And these interesting questions that have unlimited answers, and is as the only limitation is how far are you willing to think about what you want to create for them. So how far do you want to go with the brand that you're taking with? So it's really interesting and it's fun working in this space, I think. And with more and more people coming into this space, I think what everybody kind of mentioned over here is that they don't know what their role is yet, right? I don't even know at all, right? Most of the times. But I think as more and more people are coming into the space, we're gonna be able to find our own niche, and then we're gonna be able to define our role at some point. But perhaps now it's too early, and perhaps now we are co-founders and educators and trailblazers and I don't know, owners, whatever, right? Until you really get the title you need to have, but it's gonna be down the line. But for now, it's just we're helping everyone come along into the Web3 space.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, there's just so much potential. Even if we're going to focus on the topic of NFTs alone, you can take that in any directive to creative NFTs, which falls more into the creative economy, but also utility-based NFTs, which is taking that far off concept and then planting its feet in the real world. And I mean, that in itself is just digitizing value that's already created and facilitating these transactions. And when you bring those experiences then into the metaverse, to tie it back to what you guys are all working on, it's really just a means of facilitating all of that. But bringing it back to education as well, I think that's something that, and if I may speak for us all in saying that we're all so passionate about opening up the opportunities. It's been incredible to be working in a space where you see the work that you put in directly contribute to building out a space and to bringing more people on board and empowering creators. And that's something that I'm personally so passionate about building out for NFT BAZL, is just facilitating this environment in which I could tell someone who I see in a position where I was 10 years ago. I mean, I started off as an artist. I was a painter before getting into this space. And I never imagined a life in which I could just pursue art as a career. That was never even an option for me. I knew it was possible. You see examples of successful artists who are thriving, but to me, the route to get there was, the chances were so slim of being that one artist that makes it and ends up launching my career and sustaining a life. So I used to tell people when they asked me what I wanted to do for a living that my future job doesn't exist yet. And then, I mean, here we all are working to build out a space in the metaverse, which is a word I had never even heard of 3-4 years ago. So it's been really inspiring to see. And yeah, I'm going to open the floor back up to you guys to speak a little bit about your experiences and maybe your own personal career trajectories in terms of getting to where you are today and discovering the space and what you hope to continue to build out in the future.
Yeah, go ahead, Oscar.
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess for myself, it's been kind of a crazy ride because up to a couple of months ago, I was just finishing my my degree here in France, and at the beginning of the year, it was just me and a couple of friends, really passionate by the blockchain and NFTs and Solana especially, and just our collective experiences of being into gaming, into game development as well, into 3D designing, and just coming together and trying to mix those kind of skill sets with NFTs. And we were very lucky that we started our project at a time where the metaverse was really, a hot topic on Solana. So we got really huge traction at the beginning of our project that we managed to still keep to this day quite relevant. And it's been like since January to today, like complete. It's been so fast. That's the thing with Web3 as well. Is often said, a month in Web3 feels like 5 years in the normal time, because things move at such a pace, and you have to be very flexible. You have to adapt to everything, and and to be in this position today, where we are building, we are contributing to something new. That is also one of our main, the main drawing factors for our team that we recruited, is that everybody that's on the team today is very passionate about what they're doing, because they feel like they're doing something new. It hasn't been really done before. We're kind of experimenting with stuff like streaming of the game inside of a browser and doing all kinds of stuff that doesn't really exist. And that's what keeps everybody very excited about this. It's just this new step into a new world. And it's been fun. I think Adonis said it. It's fun. It's fun to work in this space because everything is to be built again, and it's just a privilege to be in those positions, I feel like.
Yeah, and have you ever been to an event, an NFT or a Metaverse event, and found a person that is like, "Oh, I'm so bored to be here. This is not fun at all for me." I've never met a person in this space be like, "Why am I here? Oh, it's another one of these corporate events." They're all so excited to be there. They're also excited to share what's going on with them, but also what's going on with like listening to what is out there. And I think that's what is fun in working, I guess, in something which is so brand new, right? And nobody has a clue where it could go at the end of the day. I mean, I didn't know that I was going to end up here. I mean, I started as an economist and a financial analyst, and I thought at some point I was going to end up in a bank wearing a suit, and I've never worn a suit since I left university, probably. Right? And ended up here, like, trying to help build the metaverse. I mean, sometimes is where your passions take you, and I think a lot of the people that are in this space are really passionate, and this is what makes this space exciting. And then you end up working with friends, really good friends, and you call somebody and it's a developer and they're gonna give you a piece of code that you needed because you had a question. And then you know that one artist that you had a drink with at one event, and they're gonna help you with some artwork that you want to create. And then you know that lady that also had a fund and she can open the doors to you. And that's how it goes with this for now. And I think that's what's really, really nice about the Web3 space, right? Which is a bit different than more other traditional space. I know I'm not talking about the creative economy, but we say, how did he end up here? So I think that's my view of how I ended up here, and how much I actually agree with you, Oscar, is like how interesting it is to be here.
Yeah. And to be honest, like what's funny for me is how I ended up here is like, I never thought the metaverse was never something that I was like really thinking about, to be honest. And growing up, I actually wasn't a really big video game person. I didn't spend too much time playing video games. I play like maybe one video game now, but when I really looked into the metaverse, when it kind of came across me, I saw it was much more of an opportunity across all these other sectors than it was like, oh, is this about living in a computer or living in a headset? And I really saw that like, it's not about that at all. And I think that that's like very misinterpreted for someone who doesn't look into it. I have a lot of friends who sort of assume that type of thing. And, the term metaverse really is a very hot buzzword, as we know, of the past year since Facebook. And it has basically jump-started a lot of like media pushes where if a brand says they're entering the metaverse, all of a sudden everybody decides to look, and it drives billions of impressions whenever there's a mention of it across Forbes or something like that. But the reality is for metaverse, for me, and why I'm kind of excited about it, is that I do think that there's a lot of cool creative opportunity here. And I do have more of a creative background than anything. And for me, looking at the metaverse, there's three sort of ways that I see it that I often like to explain to people is, the first one is around this AR or VR, which is the whole Ready Player One side, the virtual reality or the Oculus. The second one is really around sort of like this Warcraft or this Fortnite, which is the fact that these video games are sort of metaverses in and of themselves, where you're a character in a virtual world where you can run around and engage with other characters. But where it's now changed is this whole Web3 blockchain side, where now these video games are basically put on an open network, where now anybody can come in and sort of build their own mini game within this video game. And that's where I actually like get most excited, and where I see things going in more of the near term on a practical level, which is we have a platform like Decentraland, you have a platform like Sandbox, where now you have this world, this space, and a brand can sort of partner with a company like Metaverse Group, where we can help you basically write almost a virtual story, where if you want to create a mini game like a scavenger hunt like we saw with Samsung, or Ford, the car company, has just done like a design studio for their cars, where you can partner with sort of like a design company, where now you have a platform and Ford can come in and design their own experience, and now users can come and visit it. Maybe they can compete for something and get rewarded in a token. Maybe that experience involves like an influencer, where maybe there's an esports video game guy like a Ninja on Fortnite that creates their own mini game within a Decentraland or another platform. And now all of a sudden they can take their audience and sort of build it within this virtual world. And there's all these opportunities and doors that open from that. And that's really why I think I'm here and why I'm most excited, is just that there's a lot of creative storytelling involved. There's a lot of weird opportunity here that has never been thought of before. And it gets me really excited because it sort of makes every day a little bit different. Every situation is new. And I just think that this metaverse concept, we don't know if it's a really next year or the year after thing, but I think it truly is inevitable, where we will have this really integrated in everyday life. And how close or how far, we're not sure, but it's exciting to sort of get started on it today.
And I think you make a really good point there, Matt, when you speak about gamification and adding that into everyday experiences that we already have. And that really ties perfectly back to metaverses, because metaverse, I mean, in a lot of ways is just the gamification of our reality. It's making it more immersive, making it more engaging. And that can, again, tie back into so many different industries, whether it be education, gamifying education, making it more immersive, whether that be the e-commerce experience, so making shopping more immersive, or whether it just be a social interaction with your friends online, connecting with them in more and more gamified and immersive ways, or whether it just be, diving back straight into a video game. Because we only do have about 10 minutes left, I do want to take the opportunity to invite anyone in the audience to ask any questions if you have for myself or any of the speakers up here, things that you are curious about, learning within the space, within the creative economy of Web3. And while waiting for everyone to fill in questions, I wanted to kind of take a bit of a pivot and bring up an interesting statistic that I found out recently, which was that TikTok has recently surpassed Google as the top platform and the top search engine. So we're seeing more and more so people moving to TikTok if they have a question, whether it be, how do I do this? Or I'm feeling this way, what does this mean? Just general questions that you would normally go to YouTube and Yahoo Answers. And now people are, consuming that content on TikTok, which again, I think just goes back to prove the model of gamification, because TikTok makes everything so bite-sized and consumable. And if we're speaking to the social nature of how everything on Web2 has progressed, I'm very curious to see how that social-fi model will move into the metaverse. And I'm wondering if you guys have any experiences with the social aspect of the creative economy of Web3. I know it's a bit of a specific question, but I thought it might be an interesting topic to dive into.
Yeah, I think that Oscar, please go. I was just going to say, Tali, that's really interesting around TikTok. I had no idea. And it's so true that they've gamified sort of a learning experience where now you can check on TikTok, which makes me think, like, I don't know if that's the best idea, because you could have this 14-year-old that has a viral video explaining something that doesn't really know what they're talking about.
Right? How do you know that the content that you're consuming is right? But
it's the same when you go on Quora or whatever it's called. It doesn't mean that every answer that you get over there is legit. Like, half the answers that you get there, they're a joke about what you've asked for. So it's like you need to have a bit of common sense as well for whatever you're reading, right?
And I mean, gamification is everywhere, right? Like, we mentioned TikTok, but even I was just browsing, I think it was my, to buy tickets for the train. And suddenly I receive a badge. Congrats, you booked 3 trains last week. And I was like, this is gamification, right? They gave me a success point because I booked 3 trains, and you see it everywhere now. And it's, it's because it's this addictive model that video games have developed over the years. It's just, video games are the most immersive experiences in entertainment that you can have, really. And it's only normal that it's kind of spreading to every aspect of life, really. But to kind of circle back to the question about the social aspects of it all, I think you can really find it in NFT communities, for example. I know that in Solana, that's mainly where my experience comes from. You have such strong communities of people that just hold the same NFT, right? And they create these groups and these communities that are so present, whether that be on Twitter, Facebook, Discord, whatever. And they're just so proud of being part of this community. And some of them don't even look at the value of their NFT anymore. There is, of course, still the speculative nature of it. So you have the artificial kind of hype and, oh, I'm such a fan of my NFT, I just wanted to pump real quick so I can dump it. But there are more the kind of cult-like communities out there, and that's where you see the power of Web3 in full effect, is making those communities even more engaged than on Web2, because they own something of that project. They are an active contributor to it. And that's, whenever you work for something, you like to be rewarded for it. And that's kind of this dynamic that we find in NFT communities. And the whole idea behind, I think Web3 companies such as ourselves is to find the best ways to leverage our community inside, with us as contributors, as partners. And it's something that we realized as we started as this NFT project, so full Web3, whatever, community interaction. Then we shifted more towards Web2, traditional side of things, building those virtual experiences. And we realized, oh, wait a second, we are going from Web2 to Web3 here. We have to go back to that Web3 aspect and, build more on the NFT side of things and the crypto side of things, because that's the real strength, I think, in communities. But yeah, that's for the social aspect that I've noticed, at least.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. So I did just notice that we had a question from the audience. So it's for Matt. The Rick Farina is asking, on Web2 integration for Web3, do you see a path for traditional services and product companies can take advantage of Web3? Thanks, and great content.
Yeah, great question, Rick. Definitely. There's all sorts of ways to sort of get involved into Web3, and this is where it gets kind of creative, and it comes around to strategy and who you're working with to sort of create the strategy for the business. But yeah, there's so many ways that a traditional service could sort of start using the technology. One of the interesting ways that I was talking to a friend that we thought of was, even a really simple traditional payments business that has receipts, or maybe a bookkeeping business where, let's say that every time you use a certain credit card, that initial receipt statement gets immediately minted as an NFT and it goes into a wallet. And instead of having to do bookkeeping at the end of the year and collect all of these receipts, quite literally, you have the proven transparent wallet that has every receipt ever used on that credit card immediately printed into an NFT, for example, as just one use case where it's an NFT that's not creative, that's not very exciting, it's not very special, but I would say that's super, super useful, right? Use that credit card, never to think about it. So I think every traditional business, I think literally every business has a good, unique way to integrate the technology that doesn't have to do with pump and dump scams or hype or anything like that. It really is just this is a technology. It's an open, transparent network that's secure and doesn't need to be managed. How do we use it rather than using our internal server or something like that? So definitely, I think every company, if they put in the work and they work with a team, you can find a way to integrate blockchain that you'll probably be thankful for in a couple of years.
And if you comment on this question, by the way, is you should know that at some point, those Web2 companies that don't actually make a transition one way or another into Web3, they're going to be the companies that are going to be left behind, right? I'm not talking that this is going to happen tomorrow or the day after, but at some point, you're going to have what happened with Web2 companies and the companies before them, traditional companies that didn't embrace the internet slowly faded away. And then you have the internet companies, right? Now, from the internet companies, you have the, I don't know how to say it, stronger internet companies, because it's still internet, right? Which is the Web3. So sometimes you need to roll with the times instead of just staying put to what you know, if you are to grow and if you are to remain relevant within the market.
Yeah. And I will say too, that a lot of traditional businesses, they think that it's too early. And I hear that a lot, oh, it's too early to get involved in the metaverse, too early for this. But the one thing I'll say about that comment of being too early for a traditional business is the amount of learning you'll experience trying to figure something out in this multi-month, half a year process. You'll realize that actually it wasn't too early at all. It took a lot longer to figure something out. It was way more complicated than we thought. You'll learn there's all these different ways you can do something that you didn't know before. And all of a sudden now that too early moment is now kind of on pace, because now that you've gone through that, maybe your first step is sometimes we hear companies that are oh, we're interested in the metaverse, but just not yet. And it's well, now when you try and do it in 6 months, when the bull market's back or the media picks up, it's now you're in a queue and you're too late, or, oh, I didn't realize it was this complicated, or oh, we didn't have that thing in place yet. And I would say for a traditional company, the best thing to do is just take your first step, is like allocate a little bit of a budget, consider it like marketing or experiential marketing, and say like, let's make a step, let's make a media push, let's just start dancing with the idea. And then, like next thing you know, you'll find a cool use case and you'll be ready to jump because you have the relationships, you have the infrastructure at least started. So just my 2 cents, what I've sort of seen.
Thank you. And unfortunately, I think we've run out of time here, but I'll leave it off kind of pulling from that last note. What do each of you guys think would be a good first step to dip your toes into the waters of the metaverse, NFTs, Web3, whatever it might be? If you're looking to explore that space a little more, what would you say a best first direction would be? Matt, I'll leave it off with you since you just finished off that note.
Sure. I would say the thing I tell anyone, whether it's my personal friend or a big business, is like, you want to try and get some exposure and start using the technology, start transacting with it. Like, don't just read an article and assume that you understand it. Like, read something and say, how do I go get a bit of that? Like, take a little bit of money and think of it like a learning experience, like a course. And for a brand, right now there really is not a lot of options for metaverses because we are very new. So it's not like these are fully thought out, fully deployed platforms. A lot of them are in beta, but I would really suggest that look into these different Web3 platforms. You can go onto a CoinGecko and look at category metaverse and see a bunch of them that are there. And I would say for a brand, find an option, go to someone like Renovi and say, hey, let's build a very small one parcel store that's branded with us and let's activate it. Let's get it live. Let's go take our employees and visit it and just take a bit of budget to get started. And then next thing you know is you'll learn from that. And it's kind of a cool first step. And then also you'll start to understand oh, that's how that works. Now, when the next platform comes out, it's much easier to make the jump where you don't have to start from zero. So I'd probably start there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks. Adonis, what about you?
Well, what would I say? I would say, look, I said it before, and I think it's really interesting, still relevant. When you're a brand, I guess the first way to start is get a bit into NFTs, where just see what your company can do as a minor thing when it comes to NFTs. And then by the time you finish that project, you're going to be a lot more knowledgeable. And the people around you and the people that you employ about NFTs are going to bring a lot more information to you about what you can do with your business and NFTs in one shape or form. And that is going to be your gateway into pushing your company into the metaverse, into Web3, right? Web3, well, NFTs are Web3 anyways. So, but yeah, it's start small. And I think NFTs are a really easy way, right, to get into the groove of things and see what you can do. And then the world is your oyster.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would say to that point, sorry, it's definitely not an easy step to take at the moment, I think, for brands. It's really easy to get confused into whatever is going on. And it's really also easy to get confused on kind of the bullshit aspect of everything that's going on with NFTs and cryptos, with the pump and dumps and the hype driven things. And, you have to commit some efforts into actually scraping that off and finding the value in those things. And that was kind of, my personal experience with NFTs and crypto at the very start, a couple of years ago. I was like, this is madness. What is this? And then I actually got into it more with NFTs, like Adonis said, because it was kind of a cool first step to, things that I recognized there from the video game world. Oh, you're buying this stuff, it's yours, and you can resell it. And I thought that was fun. And then you get to it and you realize, oh, this is interesting. There's actually some technology here, and it's provoking those types of reactions with people, and they are all getting behind this movement. And it's definitely a bit of an effort, and you have to get into it. And NFTs are a good gateway in. And then it's maybe start buying some crypto, see how that works. Buy an NFT, see how that works. Those are already steps, that are kind of specific. It's not the easiest thing to do for anybody in a company, Then start from there and try to build your way in and see how it might be valuable for your company as well. And there's a way for it to be valuable for any company out there, I believe.
Definitely.
Amazing. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but this was a great talk with each and every one of you. Thanks so much. Oscar, Adonis, Matt, if you want to drop in the audience chat how everyone could reach you if they'd like to connect, follow you on social media. So sorry, I just broke my charger. Please do so. It's been a pleasure today. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. And to everyone in the audience, we'll be back in just a few short moments with our next panel, which I believe is how Metaverse, Web3, and NFTs can help avoid fraud, which super excited to hear that panel. So thanks so much, everyone, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.